All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, Eric Rodriguez, every Monday night live on the GSMC Sports Network, the GSMC Podcasting Network on YouTube. So make sure you guys Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show to get some notifications when we go live, and also publish some new content. We talk about everything in terms of professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside the ring, all the backstage curtain calls, all the rumors, all the drama. We talk about conspiracy theories. We talk about superstar and active statuses, injury updates, contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings for promotions like WWE to AEW to New Japan Professional Wrestling to Stardom to basically anything under the sun in terms of professional wrestling. We talk about it here on this show 1010%. So without further ado, we have NXT Stand and Deliver predictions. Can't wait to get on into it. So yeah, it's going to start here. All right, we have NXT Stand and Deliver this week. Obviously, yeah, in this WrestleMania weekend, it's gearing up to being like one of the best weekends, especially in terms of being a wrestling fan. This is every single time you turn on the television, with TNA as well, Ring of Honor. Make sure you guys check out those as well. Definitely loving that. It's kind of crazy how TNA. Their show on Thursday is going to be at Las Vegas, maybe hinting at some TNA stars being here at Stand and Deliver, or maybe being at WrestleMania. Maybe you might see Joe Hendry. If you say his name, maybe he might appear. So, NXT Stand and Deliver, can't wait to see it. But first and foremost, before we get into it, let's talk about this weekly episode of NXT. This is also the go-home show before Stand and Deliver. Can't wait to watch it. It's going to be awesome. We have a number one contenders match to determine who's going to take on Ricky Starks for that NXT North American Championship. Eddie Thorpe takes on Ethan Page, takes on Lexis King, takes on Wesley in a fatal four-way match. I can't. I like Eddie Thorpe. I do. I feel like he's North American Championship material. Wesley, I feel like I would love to see him fight in TNA for the X Division. And Lexis King, he's the Heritage Cup Championship. So I don't really think he's going to pick up the dub. If I had to put my money on anybody, probably be Ethan Page. The whole repertoire, the whole the reputation between him and Ricky Starks. The Revolution, it's been quite some time, so I don't think that could really be ignored. Next, we have a couple more spots open for the Women's North American ladder match at Stand and Deliver. We're going to have another six-way match, which is pretty badass. We have the girls who are already qualified. We have Soruka. We have Izzy, Dame of the Colleen, and of course we have the, Zarya and Kaylani Jordan. Definitely hope Kaylani Jordan turns a little bit darker, a little heel. For the ladder match, that would be, pretty badass. But a couple names that might join them. Like I said, we got two spots open. Carmen Petrovic would be a nice addition, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. But the next two spots, I gotta be honest, they're gonna be throwaway match. Throwaway superstars, like superstars that aren't probably going to win. So, and I'm not trying to be mean, whatsoever. Carmen Petrovic would be an amazing champion, but, I feel like if she qualifies, maybe she has an out. She has Ashanti the Adonis. He goes out and does, God knows, hit him with the chair, like, I'll protect you, I'll help you out. Then he ends up screwing over Carmen. So I'm not too sure how long this, that kind of old, storyline is really going to go on. But Carmen could definitely land herself in this match. Where's Thea Hale? Where it has been, ever since Chase U disbanded, she's been nowhere to be seen. Really, really prominent and live and active on social media. She would be a great Women's North American Champion. I believe that 1010%. Like I said, kind of having that edge, kind of having that presence on social media. Everybody nowadays has a TikTok. Everybody nowadays has an Instagram. Facebook is a little, declining. Did they still have Snapchat? I'm not too sure. But Thea Hale would be an interesting addition, 1010%. Shotzi, you always have to have the unpredictable badass kind of thing, and Shotzi would definitely kind of be that, that hardcore spot like Mi Chin was in that first ladder match to determine the inaugural Women's NXT North American Champion. So it'd be interesting to kind of see Shotzi come in. Lola Vice, I love Lola Vice, but she's had her chance at the Women's NXT World Heavyweight Champion, Women's Champion, and didn't really turn out. Her feud, with I don't really see it happening. I don't. But, like I said, there's still possibilities. Alicia Edwards from TNA. I feel like with this TNA and NXT partnership being, if it needs to be successful, it needs to really be circulated and gravitated around the women's division, and there needs to be a there needs to be a TNA superstar holding an NXT championship and vice versa, just to make this, a lot more interesting, because the partnership, everybody was super excited. Everybody was, oh my god, Jordynne Grace at the women's Royal Rumble a couple years ago was absolute fire. Joe Hendry, crossing over the line, being in that battle royal to determine the number one contender for Trick Williams, then Trick Williams NXT World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, we saw Frankie Kazarian participate as well. But so far, NXT superstars going to TNA. We've got Cora Jade, which is actually, she's pretty good. Got the No Quarter Catch crew and a couple other names as well. Tatum Paxley, the list goes on and on. But imagine a championship switching hands. That would, I don't know, it would be, be interesting. And Alicia Edwards would be an interesting, she'd be a great piece. Tessa Blanchard as well. I know she's achieved a lot of hate online recently. I'm not too sure how WWE's, hung up on it or not. But it'd be interesting to kind of see a TNA superstar, kind of being in that match. On NXT, we have Dark State. Dark State is going to be called out by the D'Angelo family. Dark State, I want to believe in them. I do. 1,010%. I want them to be 1,000. I want them to be better than Retribution. No one's going to be better than the Shield. Let's stop that right there. Channing Stacks Lorenzo maybe finds a way to kind of stab the Dawn in the back here. Maybe he's the leader of Dark State, which would be kind of lackluster. I got to be honest. I thought Trick Williams would reveal himself as the leader of Dark State, but he kind of got his arse kicked by then on NXT. So I'm like, it looks a little bit too real for me. Next, we have a number one tag team gauntlet match. We have the No Quarter Catch crew. We got Tyson and Tyreek, Josh Briggs. We also got Vance and Nico Vance and Jensen. We have Hank and Tank as well. No OTM. No OTM, which is kind of shocking. And no Dark State. I feel like you should have had two guys from Dark State. When they made their scene onto NXT, they attacked Axiom and Nathan Frazier, the champions. Why aren't they in the match? Like, for me, that's a red flag. I feel like that's strike one so far. Strike two, because that one time that guy came out and like his mask fell down and he lifted it up and it covered his eyes and he was like, oh, I kind of thought, I was like, all right, dude, that's cool, man. But we're not playing peekaboo over here. I'm just kidding. No, moving on. So this tag team gauntlet match, the winner takes on Nathan Frazier and Axiom at Stand and Deliver. Their match with Briggs and Inumura was amazing. I love that 1,010%. But, Hank and Tank has been getting a lot of, they've been getting a lot of love on NXT in terms of, fighting matches regularly, positive bookings. At this point, I feel like they're, with the Street Profits pumping them up, with, Matt and Jeff Hardy and stuff like that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I feel like, Hank and Tank will win this gauntlet match, and we're going to get we're going to get the babyface champions going up against these new up-and-comers who are not desperately seeking approval kind of thing, but ultimately I feel like this should be a good gauntlet match, 1,010%. We got my man Anthony Mazzano in the chat saying, hi, what's up, man? Hopefully you're having a good WrestleMania weekend. Hopefully you're getting pumped. I'm pumped 1,010%. I can't wait to watch WrestleMania. All right, now to the Stand and Deliver. We have a triple threat match for the NXT World Heavyweight Championship. Oba Femi defends against Trick Williams and Javon Evans. I feel, Javon Evans is such a great talent. Trick Williams as well. Oba, but this match is actually not a huge reason why I'm going to watch NXT Stand and Deliver, which once again shows how amazing and dominant is this women's division, the best women's division in wrestling. I don't think any wrestling fan could not say that proudly. Like I said, Trick Williams, he becomes NXT champion for the second time. Maybe even make it more interesting if he actually does kind of be the leader of Dark State. I know he got his ass kicked from them, last week on NXT, but maybe it was just like a ploy, But, him coming back as the top babyface, you've seen him backstage in confrontations with Javon Evans, and it's just, something needs to change. And he has this new, way that he's kind of approaching a lot of the younger guys in the locker room. He feels absolutely misjudged. He feels like he deserves a championship, and he's not lying. He's not lying. Him against Obafemi, I feel, but in a triple threat match, usually this is the rule of thumb in professional wrestling. It'll give somebody like an out to lose the championship. And the WWE draft right around the corner. Oba lands on SmackDown or Raw. I feel like NXT would be fine with the Javon Evans or Trick Williams. Got a chat from my man Anthony Mazzano. I think in order for Dark State to be taken seriously, I think there has to be a way. They can push themselves into the title match with Trick Evans and Oba. Yeah, I could see Lennox kind of doing that. Maybe he's the leader of Dark State, and maybe like a lot of wrestling media is just like, oh, it's got to be Trick, or it's gonna be Stacks. But I feel like it would be 1,010% that way. Anthony Mazzano also says I have a better answer, more out there than I think. Over might be the leader of the Dark State. Let me hear it. I would definitely love to hear your opinions on you guys. Let me know what you guys think of the Dark State. Let me know if you guys think that their future is positive. Let me know if you think there's going to be somebody ultimately kind of pulling the strings a little bit in terms of Dark State, because they definitely need somebody. Like Anthony said, they need to be taken seriously. This Stand and Deliver, it's the WrestleMania of NXT. It's the WrestleMania of NXT. This has to be a reason for Dark State to, why were they formed? Why this and that and the other? Obafemi, Anthony Mazzano says Obafemi. I feel like that would be great for Oba. He was the first one targeted and attacked. But, all three of these men, they've been attacked by Dark State. So, obviously, conspiracy theories are still up and riding up in the air. Obafemi would be an absolute, oh my God, imagine it, such a dominant faction. It would bring such a prestige to Dark State that a lot of fans probably wouldn't really see coming. And like I said, Oba being the first one attacked, that could also be a reason why you can think to yourself, no way, that can never happen. But then you think about it, he was the first one attacked. Be like, maybe he was like, I want you to set an example. I have a bad Nigerian accent. I'm not even going to try. He's like, you guys need to set a good example. Take me out. Show me how strong you are. Show me how strong you can be. And then, lo and behold, you have the leader of Dark State there. That'd be pretty badass. Who do you think wins the ladder match for the North American title? Being honest, I would love to see Kaylani Jordynne win. And I would love to see her kind of take on a different, like a dark persona. She lost the Women's North American Championship once. She is going to do everything in her power to never lose it again, because Lola Vice said it, I believe she said it, how ever since Kaylani Jordynne lost the NXT Women's North American Champion, no, I think it was Jaida Parker, ever since she lost that championship, man, she's lost it. She hasn't been the same person. She's been a different style. Like, she doesn't really have any friends backstage anymore. That would, I would love to see that for Kaylani Jordynne to be a winner. Obviously, ladder match would be pretty badass. Sol Ruka too. I wanted Sol Ruka to be the inaugural one. I thought that would have been pretty badass. Zarya too. Zarya's my number 3. I would love to see Zarya win that championship 1,010%. So, like I said before, Ricky Saints is going to be defending his NXT North American Championship at Stand and Deliver. Obviously, who's going to win that fatal 4-way match? I think Ethan Page picks up the victory. We get an Ethan Page first Ricky Starks, match at Stand and Deliver. Now we're getting down to the teeth of it. We have Gulia, Jaida Parker, Jordynne Grace, Stephanie Vaquer. This match is going to be absolutely off the hook. It's going to be great. It really is going to be great. I see 3 women on here that are most likely going to be drafted to Raw or SmackDown, because the mid-card titles on Raw and SmackDown it's in trouble. I don't want to say it's in trouble because I don't want to jinx it, because I ultimately advocated for them to have a Women's Intercontinental United States Championship. And now that they have, they've kind of dropped the ball. It's not really, Anyways, Stephanie Vaquer, when she came to WWE, she was actually given a choice of where do you want to go. Julia back from injury, Jordynne Grace. I gotta be honest, I would like to see Jaida Parker win. You know, like I said before, wrestling rule of thumb: fatal four-way matches, triple threat matches. Someone always finds a way to weasel their way in for the win. And when I say weasel, I don't mean that she's undeserving. The ultimate opportunistic person, Jaida Parker. You know, I would love that for her. I would love that 1,010%. She's been around the title scene for quite some time, causing fights, being such a huge piece on the NXT women's roster. You know, every other episode, she makes the division prominent. She makes her presence known. And, you know, her holding the championship would be an absolute banger, would be badass. And none of those women's superstar would have a say so of like a rematch. They wouldn't have a rematch clause because it's a fatal four-way match. So it'd be kind of cool to kind of see that you know, ultimately, you know, happen. And yeah, 1,010%. All right, before we move on to our next segment, we got my man Anthony in the chat. Did you already talk about WrestleMania in your predictions? Not yet. I'm actually going to be publishing a video in the next couple of days. It's going to be awesome. Definitely want to make sure you guys throw in your WrestleMania predictions as well. The question is, how do you make that happen without making Kaylani, Jordynne, or Stephanie, Jordynne, or Julia Luke weak? That's a good question. That's a very good question. And like with the whole, like the fatal four-way match or triple threat match, like if you kind of find a way, like usually in wrestling, and you know, obviously I know you were, you know, I know my man is a wrestling fan as well. You kind of see just a barrage, especially in fatal four-way matches. You see like a barrage of everybody hitting their finishing move, you know, and then out of nowhere, somebody comes up, pushes one of the girls outside the ring, and then, you know, covers, you know, the person that, you know, that just got the finishing move landed on. And I feel like, you know, if she gets a cheap win like that, I don't think that would make them look, it wouldn't make Jordynne or Stephanie or Julia look weak at all. I don't feel like that would, you know, I feel like it'd be like, oh, Jaida Parker, you know, ultimate opportunistic person, kind of like how Edge won his, you know, WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I feel like, you know, but then again, I'm high on Jaida Parker. I feel like she's great. She's paid her dues in NXT. I do feel like she deserves a title run, definitely. All right, guys. So hey, do not go anywhere. We get our fifth and final segment. Like I said before, John Cena is in his retirement tour. So let's go ahead and talk about the worst retirement tours in wrestling history. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite ice cold beverage, join me here in about 20 seconds. So hey, do not go anywhere.